Today, our new migration and economic development partnership will mean that anyone entering the UK illegally, as well as those who have arrived illegally since January the 1st, may now be relocated to Rwanda. People who do make it to the UK will be taken not to hotels at vast public expense. Rather, they will be housed in accommodation centres like those in Greece, with the first of these to open shortly. If they go that way, if they come across the channel illegally in these vessels, then they risk, as I've explained, ending up not in the UK but in Rwanda. And that is something that I believe will, over time, prove a very considerable deterrent.
Well, let's discuss this with Francesco Rizzuto. He's a professor of European law and head of the School of Law at Liverpool Hope University. Professor, thank you so much for joining us on this news hour. Is this deal that the UK and Rwanda have, is it legal? Does it follow international law?
It probably does, actually. I was thinking about this before I came on air. And yes, there's nothing to stop countries coming to these kinds of agreements. The legal problems are slightly different, and that is whether the agreement and what would this country proposes to do with so-called illegal migrants is consistent with our own national immigration law. And there is a big doubt about that. Why? Because at this very moment, this country is trying to bring into force, pass through Parliament, a bill on nationality and borders that makes provision for this kind of agreement. So the amusing thing is, well, it's not amusing, actually, it's very serious, that the government is announcing a policy that legally, actually, we have no legal basis to do, even though the government is arguing we do under current immigration law. So, of course, you can sign agreements with international partners. So domestically, there's a question mark over whether this is legal. Internationally, is this consistent with the Refugee Convention? Here, I think it probably is, though it clearly breaks the spirit of the Refugee Convention by not sending back to the countries from which these migrants have come from. And remember, we're talking about potentially economic migrants as well as political refugees. And here it's that processing, if you like, and distinguishing between the two that the British are trying to grapple with. But remember, sorry to go on a little bit, but remember, this is partly, legally at least, and politically, the British government's own making. Brexit was about getting back control, but actually Brexit undermined the order that did exist, such as it existed before Britain left the European Union. So in a sense, they've been the architects of the very problems they're trying to solve.
And also, it's quite ironic, but the fact that the UK actually doesn't even take in that many asylum seekers. I believe it's France, Germany, even Spain that actually takes in more. But these migrants that are trying to come to British shores, what rights do they then have, especially if they are now going to be sent to Rwanda? And I understand it's mainly going to be men who will be sent there.
Well,
and Rwanda is a country where some people have said the human rights record has also been brought into question.
Well, look, let's be clear about this. They tried to come to an agreement with Albania, and that didn't work. They then had the idea of perhaps shipping these people the minute they arrive to the Ascension Islands, which is South Atlantic. And that was regarded as ridiculous. We need to understand the political context within which this announcement was made today. And the political context is clear. And this isn't about being critical of the government, but context is everything here. The Prime Minister has made this announcement today because essentially he is in domestic political trouble. And what better than to talk about Brexit and getting back control of our borders when he's already had to face a fine from the police for breaking our own laws on COVID. So this is highly political. Whether it has the desired effects he's talking about is another question. Will it deter people coming in? I doubt very much, to be candid with you. Obviously, one can dress it as trying to save these poor people, but many of us this side of the English Channel, if I can call it that, would say that actually we need to come to an agreement with the EU and with France and then beyond to try and deal with these issues, rather than to talk about illegal immigration, using the Royal Navy to patrol the English Channel, saying to these people, the minute you arrive, we're going to separate out men from women and children, and the men are going to be shipped to Rwanda with a one-way ticket, by the way. So these men are going to be processed in Rwanda, which, as you rightly say, has an interesting human rights record. And indeed, a member of the judiciary here in a case refused to extradite people to Rwanda 3 or 4 years ago. So clearly there's been a miracle that Rwanda is now politically okay to send people. So this is a politically motivated policy announcement. It's also, remember, in England, we have local elections on the 5th of May. Yeah. And this is a way of appealing to a certain electorate to try and minimize the obvious problems that the government is going to have because of the so-called party great agreement. So this is, I should be an academic and defer from these sort of political judgments, but actually this is really not a politically, an ethically correct approach to dealing with this problem. It's to solve a political problem, and we try and wrap it up in law, but you can't do that really. You can do it, but I think it rightly.
It's really just playing politics with people's lives at stake. Yeah, Francesco Rizzuto, really appreciate your analysis on this. Live to us there from Liverpool. Thank you.